Okay.
All right, and we are live. Welcome everyone to our fifth episode of the HKN Connection. This month has been full of interesting events for our members, and the best way to end it is with one of our podcast episodes. So, my name is Sartoni. I am one of the two student governors to the HKN Board of Governors and the current social media master. I'm also a PhD student in computer engineering at Politecnico di Torino and your host for today. So, today our topic is Reinvigorating a Chapter, and our guests are Ashley Kuhnley and Hannah Schroeder. To give some introduction, Ashley Kuhnley is a first-generation transfer student majoring in electrical engineering at California State University, Northridge. She is a peer mentor and undergraduate research assistant in the AIMS-2 program, president of the IEEE Eta Kappa Nu Lambda Beta chapter, and president-elect of Transfer Student Alliance and Tau Beta Pi California Kappa chapter. She intends to apply to graduate school for the fall 2022 to further her knowledge in biomedical engineering related to medical devices and the cardiovascular system. Outside of her academics, she has a 4-year-old son keeping her busy at home. Hannah Schroeder is the president of the Epsilon Epsilon chapter of HKN. A former vocal performance major, she recently graduated from the University of Houston in May 2021 with her bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. The Epsilon Epsilon chapter was reinstated at University of Houston in fall 2019, and Hannah has been a core part of bringing that chapter to life. Outside of her commitments to school and HKN, Hannah enjoys writing and acting in plays for her theater club, enjoying good company, and exploring early hobbies. Welcome, Ashley and Hannah, and thank you so much for being here. Also, I read in the bio that Hannah basically graduated right now, or a week ago, so congratulations on that huge achievement.
Joe, thank you so much, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We can now start, and to start off, I would like to ask you, Hannah, how did you get to know about HKN in your campus, and why did you decide to join it?
Okay, so I kind of didn't know about HKN at my campus. So our chapter was founded in 1964, so it's pretty old, but it became inactive. We estimate roughly like 2007 or 2008, we're not really sure. So it had been a long time since HKN existed. I was looking at their old website, and they had an office. They had a room that's like, this is our office. And I went looking for it, and it just doesn't exist. I think they tore out the wall, and it's part of a different room now, which makes me really sad because I would really like an office.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so I didn't really know about HKN. I got an email from our department because they were recruiting people to be a part of the reinstated HKN chapter. And I had always wanted to be a part of something like that, so I was like, this sounds very cool. It's an organization for, UCE major like myself that's maybe a little bit smaller than IEEE, and I was like, that sounds cool. It's an honor society. And yeah, they were looking for people to be officers, and that was something that I wanted to do. So I was like, yes.
Okay, and what about you, Ashley?
So I kind of have a similar story where I didn't actually know about HKN for quite some time. They were also not active on campus for quite some time, I think since maybe 2016, 2015. And I actually heard about the Honor Society from Dr. Ramesh. He's handling the AIMS 2 program. And he had mentioned when he found out that I was an EE that he's looking to get it up and going again. And so through working with him, I was able to kind of learn about what they offered, and that it wasn't just like a club that you get to say you're part of an honor society and you don't do anything. Like there's actual community commitments that you can make, and there's a lot of room for you to grow. And I didn't really understand that that perspective of it with clubs. I'm an older person, so when I came to the college, I wasn't really looking for a whole lot of student involvement, and I loved what IEEE Academy was about, and I wanted to get it going.
That's really cool, and I can relate with you, especially with what Hannah said, that being part of some sort of group where you can grow and where you can, learn new things, not only from a technical aspect, I would say, but also from a personal perspective. I believe it's really important, and I believe it's one of our, the major benefit that we can provide our members. So yeah, that is really cool. So your initial role was basically directly straight to reinvigorate the chapter, right?
That's right. So I responded to that email like, yes, I would like to be involved, and I would also, like to apply for an officer position. And I was vice president. It pretty much just straight happened. The department, their plan was to send us to the Student Leadership Conference in fall 2019. It was in Boston, and they were going to help us organize the induction ceremony for fall 2019, and then we were on our own for that point. So yeah, we did those two things. And then, after, vice president, I've been president ever since. So yeah, the initial role that we had was a little bit weird. We only had two responsibilities in fall 2019, was to go to the conference and learn and put together that induction ceremony. And, having no Preston, it was extremely weird.
Yeah. I can imagine.
We didn't really have a super clear idea of what that ceremony was going to look like, and that made things difficult. But yeah, so, you guys have some resources online, especially the script in particular. I think if we had to write our own, that would have turned out poorly. The department helped us out in terms of giving us ideas for the dinner and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I believe that to be normal, because when you start, when you reinstate a chapter, you really do not have many resources, I believe. So Ashley, can you relate on that, or what's your experience?
Yes. So when we did our induction ceremony, I was treasurer, and the person who was president at the time, John Dizon, he did a lot of work. We did everything that we could to make sure we got the ceremony going. But similarly, our department had emailed all of the students that they thought would be, good for leadership positions. And it was really hard to find people. It took 6 months maybe to find enough to actually have a leadership team. So once we had them and we got our induction done, John decided to step down because he wanted to focus on his academics. Getting the induction ceremony took a lot of work from everybody. So I decided to step in, and so I've been doing that since I think 2 days after our induction ceremony.
Okay, that's really cool. And after that, would you describe what is the process of reinvigorating a chapter? What is your experience in trying to rekindle that kind of flame?
Sure. It's a little difficult, especially because we reactivated during the pandemic. So we weren't reactivated beforehand and had to struggle through it. And it's really hard to try to find students who want to participate in really any kind of activities outside of their academics when they didn't know what anything was, or what Eta Kappa Nu was before the pandemic. So it's still just the 9 of us, but we're doing whatever we can to try to get ready for the summer and for next semester. And that includes things like doing preview sessions for our EE fundamental courses. I'm going to be hosting some transfer student workshops so that they can understand what our courses look like, what our labs look like. And I'll be doing some workshops on things like lab reports that our professors expect, because at the community college, lab reports are a worksheet that's like a page long where you kind of just talk about something. And when you get here, they're 20 to 80 pages long. And, there's a lot of information that some of these students don't really understand that they need. So we're trying to do this outreach for all of the incoming students and for some of the existing students. So we're working with things as we go. We're talking to the students that we know that aren't involved with the chapter but are in the department, and trying to figure out what they would like to see from the department. And one of those things was senior design. A lot of students had no idea what they were doing for senior design. And I didn't. I'm going into it this semester and I didn't know. So I learned a lot putting this catalog together, but I was able to reach out to the department. The department was very supportive and they're still supportive of whatever we're doing now. But I was able to reach out to all the faculty and we put together a catalog, and it has all of the projects that are going to be hosted next semester, lets you know what classes teachers are looking for, how many students they're looking for, so people can be better prepared going into it. And I think that was our big debut within our department to let people know. So
Thank you. And Hannah, what about you?
I do want to say, you made this point earlier, that we did start out with 6 officers, that were chosen by our department. 2 of them immediately graduated after fall 2019. And then it was just the 4 of us. We asked a couple of people that we knew, but none of them took the bait. And it is easier with 6 officers. You can do more stuff than it is with 4. So it is nice to grow in that regard. The pandemic, I'm also not really sure how to answer that because, most of our chapter life has been during the pandemic. We had the one fall 2019 induction ceremony that was in person. We had a couple events in January and February of the next semester, and then pandemic happened. So I can talk about how different last semester has been to this semester.
Sure.
Last semester we had a lot of inductees who had already known about HKN through IEEE, or through something associated with that, or just from us talking about it. But this semester, a lot of our inductees didn't really know about HKN. They were a lot more introverted, I think. So yeah, it was a lot harder to get them to come out. But we started a new thing this semester called our junior officer program that encourages inductees to serve as quasi-officers or quasi-officers. I don't know how you pronounce that. So I think that we have a couple officers next semester who were part of that program, and I think that was good, and getting them involved and talking to us and learning about what the chapter does.
Absolutely. I believe it's really important, and I cannot start to imagine how hard it is, not only to reinvigorate the chapter, to reinstate the chapter, which is hard as it is, but also having to do that during the pandemic. And I say this also from my perspective, it's obviously harder when you cannot meet with each other in person. Also for events, I believe that a lot of team building occurs during events, because it's where everything occurs. You finally see the results of months and months of work, and I believe it's inevitable. And doing this online, it's definitely not easy. So I would like to thank you for all the hard work you put into there, because it's really a lot. It's really a lot. And I'm curious, did you have the chance to talk with some alumni of your chapter, someone who lived your chapter, like the experience of being in your chapter before you, so that you could find some sort of inspiration, okay, from that? Hannah, if you want to go first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. If you want to go first, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I talked to a couple alumni. We found, the old chapter website, and we contacted all of the former officers that were on it. And I talked to, one of the old presidents, who sent me a bunch of pictures. Unfortunately, he's out of the country and couldn't do a whole lot of communication. We also have a couple chapter alumni who are on the department's industry advisory board. And we have one chapter alumnus who's a current professor, but other than that, we don't really have a lot of alumni or that we're in contact with. So it is a little bit difficult. And we tried to do that in the beginning, just find out, what the old chapter traditions were and whatnot, because we just didn't have a lot of that information. It just didn't exist. So let's see. I think, yeah. Now that I remember, I don't think we ever found out if there were any chapter traditions that we should continue. We just kind of started our own.
Okay, and Ashley?
Yeah, we're kind of in the same boat. We don't really know of any alumni. We have two graduate students who were the leadership before it was deactivated. One of them was the president, I believe the other one was the treasurer. So he was very helpful with transitioning the, I guess, university side of things over. But as far as, what they did as a chapter or anything that they were working on, any of their documentation, we don't have access to it. So it's been a little, I guess, awkward. We've been trying to feel around and figure out what we're doing. And we were able to find a list of some alumni that we're going to start reaching out to over the summer. But right now we don't really have anyone that we've been talking to.
Okay. And what about the faculty advisor? Did you get a chance to work with them? Did they help you, providing you some sort of material?
Yeah, so our faculty advisor is Dr. Asorno. And over the last summer, I did some research with him, and I started talking to him about the chapter to see if he had found people for officers. And so our reactivation kind of started that summer. But he's been very helpful with the kinds of ideas that we want to pursue. Anything K through 12, he's super excited about. So we're just waiting for the state to open up for us to do some of that. And as far as things that we can buy to help students when we go back on campus, like Arduinos and Raspberry Pis, that kind of stuff, he's been really helpful as far as the things we should look at buying and what he thinks we could really use to supplement our students' education with the courses and the labs that we have.
And Hannah?
Oh, yes. Our faculty advisor, Dr. De La Rosa, shout out to her, is awesome and has been extremely helpful in getting our chapter restarted. She knows a lot of people in the department, knows who to contact for this and that. For example, getting our list of eligible candidates, getting advertisements on the TVs in the engineering building, getting a key to the glass case in the engineering building, where a lot of student orgs put flyers and whatnot. She put us in contact with the, college fundraising people. Let's see, I'm trying to think of other stuff. Just general advice on professionalism and how to talk to people in the department has also been super helpful. But yeah, she's been great.
Which I believe it's really important because faculty advisors not only most likely knew people from the chapter before, there was this hiatus, but also they know lots of people from academia, but also lots of people from industry. So, if someone's looking for some partners to have some events, for instance, like I need some Arduino or Raspberry Pi boards, or I need like a catering and some food, when we'll be able to to go back to the university in person, I believe it's really, really super helpful. Faculty advisor and the head of the department talking from experience. So it's good to hear that you have such great team working with them. And the most classical question, what is your most favorite memory of this whole process, and at the same time the hardest challenge?
I guess I could start.
Okay.
So I'll start with the hardest challenge. I talked to it a little bit earlier, but it's really just the visibility that we have right now. I know that there are tons of great students that would qualify and are interested, but it's really hard to reach out to them because the department is also working through the pandemic. Things are a little slower on their side too, so it took some time to get the eligibility lists, and so I was emailing people a couple days before finals started like, hey, you guys are eligible, and that's probably the last thing that they want to see before finals. But so it's hard for us to try to gain this visibility that we need, because it's a really great organization, but it's a hard sell, especially when you can't see people on campus. So I would definitely say that that's the most difficult thing that we're trying to deal with is make sure we have this visibility and we can really express to the students that we have on campus how amazing the organization is. And as far as my favorite memory, oh man, this one always gets me. You even beforehand, you're going to ask it. I would have to say my favorite memory is probably the induction ceremony. Everyone was there. Dr. Ramesh was there. Two of my faculty advisors, Dr. Amini, Dr. Valdivinos, were there. Of course, our faculty advisor, Osorno, was there. We had a couple other faculty from different colleges that were there. Jill Green came. Nancy Ost was there. So it was really great to actually see how much of a community Ada Kappa is.
Absolutely. And you, Hannah?
Yeah. Nancy also came to one of our induction ceremonies, and it was always wild to me that that we could invite you guys.
Yeah,
right.
Anytime, really.
yeah. It's like you guys aren't too I don't know, up in your tower or whatever.
Right.
So that was always nice, that you guys want to be involved in that. Let's see, favorite memory is our very first event was a test review session for circuits 1 and 2 students. We had a bunch of volunteers come out, and about 20 to 30 circuit students, we all sat around tables. It was really informal. It was a real chill time. But the thing that makes it my favorite was that half the chapter came out to volunteer, literally half, because they were just excited that, we're doing stuff, and, that I was really flattered, and, I don't know, I just thought that was really cool. Hardest challenge definitely also has to do with getting our name out. Hardest challenge for me personally was just learning how to organize our executive committee, you know, spent a long time like learning how to delegate and like run the officer meetings, you know, and I think our new president will have a lot to go on, which whereas I didn't, you know, to learn a lot of stuff from scratch, you know. We would have a task and be like, okay, you know, we'd be in an officer meeting and be like, all right, now we have to do this. And we'd all just look at each other like, okay, how do we so like, what do we do? You know, so I mean, it's nice that you can acknowledge that, because if you can't acknowledge that, then it becomes a lot harder problem to solve, you know? So it's nice that we can ask each other for help. I've always had really good officers. But yeah, that's the hardest challenge for me personally. Hardest challenge for the chapter is also visibility. A lot of people don't know who we are. We still get inductees who are like, yeah, I didn't know that you guys were a thing before I got this email. So it's like, oh, okay. But next semester, University of Houston is going back to like 80% in person. So I'm presume, and it's up to the new officers, but I presume that most of our events will also be in person. We've got some cool t-shirts that will help a lot with our visibility. Just, you know, showing up to things, showing up to engineering college events, and, you know, word of mouth is a big one. But that's a challenge that will resolve itself over time. I'm not like super worried about that.
Well, there is something though that I particularly liked from what you said, Hannah, and that is when you talked about where half of your chapter showed up for your event because they were excited, and I kind of understand their feeling because. As we were talking about before, I really do believe that when we have something going on is when people decide to show up and put some extra effort, right? So this is volunteering, right? So why should I put my free time? Obviously, we know that there's some value in doing so, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, but doing events, trying to get the ball rolling is where I believe things start to improve, which is not easy when it's the 5 of us or the 6 of us, but but in that regard, I also particularly like the aspect that you can rely on other chapters. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time, right? So this is something that really applies to every chapter. Right now, I believe there are some great opportunities to do some joint events. Like maybe you don't have the manpower to organize a big event, but maybe you two could collaborate and you could invite some people. I don't know, okay? And instead of being 4 and 9, you are 13. So I believe there's really value in that, and yeah, this is just a general suggestion, but I really like that part.
Yeah, we did have more than 4 members. It was just the 4 officers.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no. Okay, so let's take a look at what comes next, okay? Because you really have done a lot of work, and it would be a waste if, you know, these efforts is not, the flame that you're kindled is not kept on by new officers, okay? So what is your plans for the future? What do you think the chapter should do for the future, and where do you think there's room for growth?
So That's an interesting problem that we've been thinking about for the last month or so, because we have 6 officers right now, 5 of which are graduating. So that's a big, that's been a big topic for us, is how to handle that. Because I've been the president for the last 3 semesters, and oftentimes when you get a new officer and they have questions, they just ask me their questions, or ask one of the other officers. But one, the new president for next semester may not have all the answers to that question, or those questions. So what we did, we wrote a big transition document that has pretty much all kinds of information on it, like where to start, where to get your resources, what, passwords are, and links to our other documentation. We've got timelines for reports and for the induction ceremony, if you want to have the certificate by the ceremony, you need to order them at least 3 weeks in advance, which means you need to collect dues before that, which means you need to send out this form at least a week in advance, which means you need to send out the email, on week 2 or whatever. So we have a substantial amount of documentation now that I didn't have. We've got a big spreadsheet of our contacts in the department, this person, okay, here's what they do, their email address, are they nice, do they like being talked to, information like that. So our old officers are also very open to being contacted. I told the new president, look me in the eye, look me in the eye. Ask me for help if you need it. I did this. And, because I always struggle with that, is asking people for help. And when it's a new chapter, it's you kind of have that excuse where it's hi, I'm new. It's a lot easier to ask people for help. But when you're established, you might have a little bit of oh, what if we're supposed to know how to do this already?
Yeah.
So, that's extremely important. And I wanted to make that extremely clear to her.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see myself in some things you said, at the beginning. I really do believe that officer roles, it takes you 6 months, 4 months or something like that to really grow into the role. At the beginning you're I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it anyways. More or less, obviously you have some sort of training, but you have to discover a lot of things on your own. But there are some challenges that maybe it's better to ask someone who has that experience, and there's really nothing wrong in asking. You learn from them, you learn from their experience, you can avoid doing some errors and move on. And Ashley?
Yeah, so most of our officers that we have now when we were inducted, so we reactivated February 26th of this year, are going to be continuing with us into the next semester. So we have the summer to try to put some of this stuff together. We do already have some things like our spreadsheets and our documents all in one place for people. And I want to make sure that not only the officer roles and positions and, events that we're holding are set up, but that some of the ideas that maybe we didn't even get to do are also put out there and whatever we've worked on, because there's always room for improvement. The new officers for the next year might not be a huge fan of something that we've done before, and they want to do something else to help the community. So we're trying to make sure that we document, our successes and our failures, and that those things can carry on. And my biggest thing, this took me a really long time to learn, is that it's okay to ask for help. And so I've been telling even the officers that we have now, and Dr. Rubesh has been pretty good about reminding us that we, and Nancy too, definitely, it is okay to ask for help. If something's not clear, we can ask again. You guys have been immensely supportive. So I want to make sure that the officers and our members know that our community is not just like us on campus. Like it's everybody. It's you, exactly. It's Nancy, it's, it's Hannah. So they can ask for help. Yeah. I mean, we're really a big family. And I think that's going to be the most important thing that I want our chapter to go with moving forward. Because it's not just about staying alive. It's about making sure that you can be able to bring more people in and get them excited about what you're doing.
100%. Yep.
Yeah, we've had a lot of like really supportive people. Our IEEE student branch especially has been like super supportive. They invited me to their officer meetings just to like see how things worked. They helped us like reserve rooms on campus before we were like officially registered with the university. Really all kinds of stuff, like I asked their officers about like, how to do, especially like the treasury type stuff, how did you set this up? Where did you go? Do we have to pay taxes? Is that a thing we have to do? A lot of, but they've been really great. Faculty have been always willing to talk to us. If it's like when a freshman or something wants to talk to me, it's like, oh my God, a freshman, like, of course I want to talk to you. So it makes sense that, other people would feel the same way about us, but sometimes you don't feel that they feel that.
Yeah.
But they do. And you just have to like, trust that they probably do.
Mm-hmm. So I really do believe that, well, first I want to ask you, so has the help we provided you as HKN been useful for your activities?
Yeah, definitely. So outside of, helping with the induction, Nancy, you and Joe, even Katie have offered really great advice for doing things. The podcasts that you guys do, or even the events that you guys are hosting, are helpful. I believe you guys had just started the chapter activities kind of catalog on the website, so that all of the chapters can look and view the other activities the chapters are doing. That's been really helpful. Our officers have been looking through that, saying, I really like what they did here, so maybe we can look at doing that for next semester. So you guys have been I'm not just saying, like, you guys have really been immensely supportive, and I'm really thankful that we have that, because I feel like if we had gone into this without that support, that we probably wouldn't be able to keep the chapter alive.
Wow.
It's huge. It's made a big difference.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat, and I would like to ask that before we move on to the last point, and that is, so Hannah, you were talking about the Student Leadership Conference before. How did you like it? Did it help you? What's the best memory?
I really enjoyed the Student Leadership Conference. We hung out a lot with the UC San Diego chapter, and they're very active. We had the meeting with our governors, and we ended up talking to their officers after that meeting for like a couple hours, I think, about what do you do? What kind of activities do you have? Like, how is your executive committee structured? Oh, you guys induct computer science students? Like, we can do that? Because at UH, computer science is in a completely different college, So, we had always thought of HKN as just ECE, electrical and computer engineering. Mm-hmm. So I think we typed out an email to one of the computer science clubs, on the bus, to a different part. Best memory, it has nothing to do with the conference, actually. It's just like hanging out with them. It's really fun. Played Jackbox, and it was very fun. But relevant to HKN and relevant to the conference itself, probably just meeting so many different chapter leaders. We still have the notes from that conference, like, oh, there's a chapter that gives each inductee a big wooden, HKN, whatchamacallit, Wheatstone Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool, write that down. Yeah, I don't know, learned a lot.
But I believe that what you learn personally can also be helpful from an officer point of view, because I was there too. I don't know if you remember, but it changes you, I believe, in some ways, like this international perspective. Related to what you were saying before, before that you really are, your focus maybe is a little bit too much on your campus, but then after that you realize that there are 200 more chapters around the world. So yeah. And this, I believe, leads us to the last point, which would be the lessons you've learned. You have talked about many different things you learned in these months. Okay, so I'm going to ask you, how do you think the lessons you learned will be relevant for your career?
I guess I can start this way. One of the things, and I was actually working for quite some time before I came back to school. I used to be, and I'm still learning, a really bad delegator. So definitely delegating, even if management isn't something that I necessarily want to do after I've graduated. It definitely helps to be able to trust that other people can do the things that I've assigned. And, that doesn't always happen, and that's okay. You have to figure out how to navigate through that, and that's, a skill and a lesson learned there too. So I think that's probably the biggest lesson for me, and whoever the next president will be after me, I'm definitely going to make sure that they understand, like, delegate. Don't do everything on your own. You can reach out to other officers, members, the department, advisors. There's a lot of people you can reach out to, not just for general help, but to actually, get stuff in motion.
Mm-hmm. And Hannah?
Yeah, for sure. That was one of the biggest things for me personally, was learning how to delegate. Because, sometimes it feels like you're imposing on them, like, oh, I got all these assignments due, like, it's such a small task, like, should I really ask them to do it? But yes, you should. They're an officer. Like, this is, they signed up for this, Hannah. It's fine. But that, and especially also, like, emails. I used to be, like, kind of uncomfortable with emails. Like, people would send me an email and I'll be like, oh god, I got an email. But now it's like, a substantial part of my job is just like writing emails. And now it's just like whatever, like, oh, someone sent me an email. Hang on, I'll type a response like during class. Usually when I respond to emails.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly communication. Just
I really would like to emphasize the importance of delegating other people, and only because it makes your life easier, which is a huge plus. Yeah. But also because this way you let other people grow. And then eventually, when it will be the time, that they can, take the job. Okay, so basically, they are skilled enough. They have been learning how to do this, so you can rely on them. So delegating is not just do it for me and whatever. It's it's a favor you get, but also it's something you give them. Okay, and obviously this implies that people know that doing this is helpful for them. And this goes back to what kind of, the value proposition, so to speak, of HKN in general. But I believe that there's really a lot. And I think it really, it emerged from this conversation that there's really a lot to learn, a lot to receive, and a lot to give with being officers, especially if you have some really important task like reinstating a new chapter. So once again, thank you for that. I don't think there are any other questions. So I'm going to wrap up this episode. Before we end this, I simply want to highlight the upcoming graduation celebration event, which is going to be on the 5th of June. And this event will include a virtual procession of the members of the class of 2021, the presentation of the Outstanding Chapter Awards, remarks from the 2020 Outstanding Student Award recipient, recognition of the 2020 key chapters, and the elevation of Dr. Maxine Savitz, Vice President, National Academy of Engineering, to HKN Eminent Member. And I wanted to remind to everyone who's attending this event, if you graduated this year, we invite you to submit a photo of yourself wearing HKN Honor Corps, stoles, or other HKN attire to participate in the virtual graduation procession, like this really cool t-shirt, or also Ashley, I see from yep. The deadline to submit your photo is May the 26th, so next Wednesday, I believe. Yep. Once again, thank you to Ashley and Hannah for being our guests today. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. And thank you to everyone watching. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming episodes of the HKN Connection. Also, if you'd like, follow us on social media. We have basically every one of them. We have it: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Thank you and have a great day.